In 1941, during World War II, Germany surrounded the Russian city of Leningrad for nearly 900 days. No food coming in, no way out. And by the first winter, people were eating things no one should ever have to eat, just to see the next morning. A retired steelworker named Frank Delgado in Youngstown, Ohio, spent $9 a month on food for 2 straight winters. When the soup kitchen ran dry, he cut up his own leather belts, boiled them for hours, and ate them. That's number 2 on this list. In 1987, a widow named Ruth Kowalski in Gary, Indiana, lived $11 a week for groceries after the mill closed under her husband. She didn't have enough flour to make bread, so she mixed sawdust in with what little flour she had. It made the dough go further, so instead of baking 4 loaves, she could bake 10. It wasn't real bread, but it kept her family fed. Keep her in mind, her bread is where this list ends. Let's start at the bottom of the pot, with the meal almost every family in a besieged city eventually reached for, once there was nothing left in the cupboard but water and whatever grew outside the door. 10. Saltwater broth. With grass, water, salt, whatever grass or weeds grew near the building, you boil the water first, salt it if you have any left, then drop in the grass until it goes soft and dark. It tastes like the ground itself, warm and mineral, and it fills you even when it can't feed you. In Leningrad's first winter, mothers pulled grass from between paving stones because the markets had nothing, and a ration card by late 1941 bought as little as 125 grams of bread a day for the people who weren't working the factories. 9. Watery yeast soup. Yeast, water, salt if you had it. You dissolve the yeast slow, let it sit until it swells, then simmer it thin so it doesn't clump. It smells like bread that never got to happen, faintly sour, faintly alive. Bakers in besieged Leningrad kept back yeast meant for loaves and turned it into broth instead, because a rumor of bread was better than nothing. Decades later, in Appalachian coal towns, women did something close with the last of a yeast packet during long layoffs, stretching a nickel's worth of yeast into 3 days of soup. 8. Sugar-soaked earth from the Bediaev warehouses. Dark earth, dug up and dissolved in hot water, then strained through cloth until only the sweetness was left. In September 1941, German bombs set fire to Leningrad's largest food warehouses, and thousands of tons of stored sugar melted straight down into the soil beneath them. For weeks after, people came to the ruins with buckets and shovels and dug that blackened, sugar-soaked ground up like it was something worth mining. Because by then, it was. A pound of it reportedly sold on the black market for close to a week's bread ration. In 1930s Chicago, a laid-off refinery worker named Walter Ochoa did something close, scraping the syrup-crusted floorboards of a shuttered candy plant and boiling the shavings down into a thin, sweet water to get his kids through a rough month. 7. Frozen potato peels. Potato peels, water, salt. You gather peels most people throw out, rinse the dirt off, boil them until they lose their stiffness. They taste of earth and a little of sugar, the way frost brings sweetness out of a vegetable that's been through the cold. In the siege, a pound of potatoes on the black market could cost more than a month's wages, so peels were traded at checkpoints like coin. In 1980s Detroit, an unemployed line worker named Harold Bryce kept every peel from every potato his family bought at 19 cents a pound, boiling them Sundays into something like a meal. 6. Duranda, oil cake press residue. The pressed leftover from oil extraction, seed hulls and fiber, nothing more. You break it into pieces, boil it soft, sometimes fry the edges if there's any fat to spare. It's rough on the tongue, bitter at first, then almost sweet where the fires touched it. Leningrad factories handed out Duranda meant for livestock feed once nothing else was left, and a single block, no bigger than a bar of soap, reportedly traded for 3 rubles by the winter of 1941, about what a loaf of real bread cost before the siege began. Mothers fed it to their children without telling them what it actually was. It worked. They never knew. 5. Boiled bark and pine needle tea. Bark, pine needles, water. You strip the bark thin, boil it down with the needles until the water turns amber, and drink it slow, in small sips, because it's bitter, and it's all there is. It smells like a forest in winter, sharp, resinous, alive in a way nothing else in that kitchen was. foresters' families near Leningrad, and later, homesteaders through hard Appalachian winters, kept this going as both food and medicine. A strong dose could supply close to a day's worth of vitamin C, enough to keep teeth in place and gums from bleeding through the worst months. 4. Carpenter's glue soup. Carpenter's glue, made from boiled animal bone and hide, thinned with water and whatever salt remained. You boil it low and long until it turns from something structural into something almost like broth. It tastes of bone and smoke, thick on the tongue, more felt than tasted. Carpenters and joiners in Leningrad broke into their own workshops for it. A single sheet of hide glue, cut into strips, could reportedly stretch into 3 days of broth for a family of 4, boiling down the very material meant to hold furniture together, because the furniture wasn't going to keep anyone alive that winter. 3. Scraped and boiled wallpaper paste, scraped dry off the walls, boiled in water with nothing else added. You peel it in strips, boil it until it thins into something drinkable, and swallow it fast before you can think too hard about it. It has almost no taste at all, just warmth and weight in the stomach, which in that winter was its own kind of luxury. One wallpaper hanger in Leningrad stripped his own apartment bare, room by room, because the paste was flour-based, and flour, by then, was a memory. A single room's worth of paper could yield close to 2 pounds of it, enough for nearly a week of thin soup for his family. 2. Boiled leather belts and book bindings. Leather belts, old book spines, water. You cut the leather into strips, boil it for hours until it softens enough to chew, and eat it slow, because it never really gives up all its stiffness. It tastes of tannin and smoke, tough at the edges no matter how long you cook it. Men in Leningrad boiled their own belts down after the last of the Duranda ran out. A single belt, boiled long enough, yielded barely a cup of edible material, split between 2 people if you were lucky enough to have someone to split it with. Frank Delgado didn't have a soup kitchen left either, decades later and an ocean away, when he put his own belt in the pot. Different war on hunger, same belt. 1. Bread cut with sawdust and cellulose flour, what little remained, cut with sawdust, cellulose, and ground cottonseed cake. You mix it thin, bake it low and slow so it doesn't crumble apart, and cut it into pieces small enough to make it last the week. It tastes of char and grain, and almost nothing sweet, dense in a way that sits heavy and honest in the stomach. By December of 1941, roughly 40% of Leningrad's ration bread was cut with fillers like this, and bakers knew exactly what they were putting in it, and baked it anyway, because bread that was only half real was still better than no bread at all. Ruth Kowalski did the same thing 46 years later and an ocean away, cutting her flour with sawdust so a little bit of bread could turn into a lot of bread, and so nobody in her house went to bed hungry. None of these are meals anyone should have to make again. That's the whole point of remembering them. They're proof of how far people will go when there's nothing left, and how many of those same choices got made again, decades later and an ocean away, by people who never saw a single day of that siege. History forgets these meals, because nobody wants to remember being that hungry. But somebody should. Tell me in the comments which one you think you'd have had the hardest time swallowing, the wallpaper paste or the leather belts. And the next time your own cupboard looks a little bare, remember it's never been this bare, and it probably never will be. That's worth being grateful for.